Twisted here with Open Sorcery, and today I want to go ahead and talk about the story of the Thunder Sun, which comes from the mythology and the stories and tales of the Native American tribe of the Shawnee. Now, this is something that a friend of mine happened to go ahead and bring up to me several days ago, and I was thinking, you know what? This is a pretty good story, so might as well go ahead and share it with you guys. And, in terms of the particular web page where they shared it with me from, I will go ahead and provide that in the description. But of course, I'll be reading it aloud for the purpose of, just recording and all that sort of thing. So, yes, just to go ahead and state that, this article originally was on a website for the Shawnee's Reservation, and it is not necessarily there any longer, but it's on, the current link that I'm posting down in the description box and all that sort of thing. I didn't write it, someone else did, and all that, so, shouts out to whoever that is. But yeah, aside from any sort of, preface or, anything like that, let's actually dive into the story itself. So this is the tale of Thunder Sun, and it urges us to look into the heart for beauty. Long, long ago, there was a woman who lived alone at the edge of her village. This young woman washed and combed her long brown hair with oils from animals, and her body was plump with their meat. She carried heavy chopped wood to her home alone, nurturing her strength every day. Her skin was smooth as corn silk, for she washed in the cold river water only once in a great while. Her clothes were washed in the river and left to dry while lying on the bushes in the hot sun. She was beautiful. She knew she was beautiful. She was too beautiful to have just any man. She stayed by herself with her own admiration. She worked alone in the cornfields and returned, noticing her reflection in the water baskets that she carried. She lived alone in her beauty. Then one day she met a man. This man was like no one she had ever known. His strength shone in his deep, piercing, brown-black eyes. This man had followed her from the river back to her home. His long black hair blew behind him as he walked beside her. He took the water baskets from her hands. His sleek, muscular body rippled as he walked beside her. His power echoed in his long stride. The feathers tied in his hair lifted with each step. His voice echoed through the air as he spoke. "Maiden, let me help you with your water carrying. Let me invite you to my home to meet my family." She followed him. She would not only look into his eyes, yet she smiled. He walked beside her to his mother's wigwam. He introduced her to his two sisters, and they asked her to remain. She stayed with these people, for they appreciated her and needed her company. She accepted the strong man as her man and became one of them. Her man would go out hunting all day, while the women worked in the fields. He brought home plenty of meat, for he was an excellent hunter. The women were magical in their growing of corn, so there always was much cornbread, corn stew, and cornmeal. Life was good in this way. One day, the man came back later than usual, his hands bloody with cuts, his hair tangled in snarls, his moccasins torn. He told his story. The hunt this day was difficult. The deer was quick. I shot and only wounded it. I prayed and followed it, but the deer ran to the sacred stream and ate plants that heal. Then I rolled in the sacred mud, and the wound disappeared. I knew that I was not to kill this one. I returned to the hunting field and prayed to find another deer. The deer that came across the field was an older stag. It stared at me, and I knew that this stag would be the one killed. It was a fine deer with horns of great honor and a sleekness of spirit. Then the stag leapt over the hedge and was gone. I was fast and agile, and soon found the tracks leading over the edge of a high cliff, but I did not notice the cliff, only the tracks. My body was badly bruised, hands cut, legs ripped. As I freed myself from the hedge of thorns that saved me, I limped home without meat. He was tired. He lay down on his bedroll with his head on his beautiful woman's lap. She stroked his hair, feeling the weariness of his spirit. She noticed that his body was transforming. His breathing slowed as he turned into a gigantic snake. The beautiful woman felt the hair she was stroking shrink to scales that covered his head. She carefully inched her way out from under his massive, fangled head to escape outside. His mother saw this woman's fearful expression. "We are serpent people. We are good and wish you well. My son truly loves you. Yet, if you feel that you can no longer stay here, you should run away. But go quickly, for if my son wakes and knows that you have run from him, he will try to find you and bring you back. Run, run, and go quickly. Do not look back." The beautiful woman ran. Her legs moved quickly at first. Then, as she thought about her good man, his kindness, his abilities, she slowed. Her mind argued with her heart. She sat down to rest. She was tired and decided to close her eyes and pray. She had a dream. She dreamt her pride was what brought her into this problem, and that her wisdom would get her home. She awoke in a thunderstorm. Thunder Spirit called to her, and the deep, rolling voice was deafening. She jumped up with her hands over her ears. The great voice echoed across the land. "Run, run, run! The snake man is behind you. He shall catch you." The beautiful woman ran with the fear of her soul pounding in her head. She heard the terrible rustling of the serpent man. She let her legs move her across the mountains, and soon she came to a lake near her home. There, standing around the lake, were 3 handsome men. The tallest put out his hand, telling her to stop. He lifted his long, shining spear at the serpent, threw it, and pierced the snake. All at once, a roaring black cloud surrounded the 3 men. The tallest spear thrower was a thunderman. The thundermen took the woman to their father's home on an island. She married the 3rd son, who was quiet, kind, and thoughtful. She gave birth to a son. The boy grew strong and used his thunder well. The woman asked Thunder Father if she could go home for a visit and take her son with her to meet her people. Thunder told her that she could take her son as long as he never used arrows. His son's arrows would turn to lightning and destroy people. The woman agreed. At first, their life went well. Thunder Boy was quiet and stayed close to his mother. The other children stayed away from him, for they did not know him. Then they began to jeer at him and laugh at him, saying that he did not know how to use an arrow or a bow. This made Thunder Boy very angry. He took a bow and an arrow and shot wide. It hit some trees and started a terrible fire. His grandfather swooped down and carried the boy to the sky, where he is unable to hurt men. The woman stayed with her people. She lives alone and works with other women. Her beauty is no longer of interest to her, and she warns others to look into the heart for beauty. For the day the serpent was pierced, her heart was pierced also. So, and having gone ahead and recited that, and for those listening, what can we go ahead and take away from that story and that myth? And granted, I, said the subtitle of the particular story on the webpage itself at the beginning, but the moral of all of this is that, you have to look past the surface level to see the true contents, the depth of a person. Whether it be, someone not being attractive by, whatever sort of beauty standards there are, having, deformities or, any sort of disabilities, or just not being, what we consider as looking like a supermodel, or, Instagram model, or, whatever sort of social media platform, people doctoring their photos to showcase, oh, hey, look, I look a certain way. Or that, maybe, they aren't necessarily having a six pack or whatever the case may be, right? While those are indicators of, what, they may have some good genetics, or, they just know how to present themselves well, and those in of themselves can be useful in some capacities. That is not the most important aspect of an individual, nor the totality, and a lot of other things to consider. So in the particular story, we have the case of the Snake Man, and, despite the fact that, there was, all these kind of things, and the wonderful way he treated this woman, that he loved and cared about, as soon as she saw his true physical form, she went running for the hills, because she was more so caring about the physical appearance, and, was being shallow pretty much, as opposed to, what, the actual depth of him as an individual and what he was bringing to the table. And granted, she did consider that to some extent, as it said, her mind was arguing with her heart, but the fear drove her. The fear drove her away. The fear drove her to go find the Thundermen. And then, of course, the Thundermen went ahead and took out the Snake Man, the love of her life. And granted, she eventually went ahead and married one of the Thundermen. And, bore one of his, one of their children. But, still, the love of her life, the what if guy, you could say, he was dead. And, she was not necessarily willing to go ahead and just allow herself to feel and allow herself to be like, what, this individual on the surface may be a little bit unseemly in a particular form, but hey, look, they are what I want and need. And even when things get tough, when things get rough, when the physical aspect, the physical layer, starts to deteriorate and fade, what's the core thing that matters? Well, you know what? It is what is on the inside. As cliche as that sounds, it's the depth of the person. And of course, as the woman got older, that's when she came to realize it, right? Is when, she became older and, her own beauty, you could say, started to fade in the sense of youthfulness. Granted, she could look beautiful, in her older age, and there is a certain beauty to being an elder, right? A different sort of it, right? Or beauty's an eyes beholder, everybody has their own thing. But all in all, she started to realize more so what was important in life as time went on. And of course, when it came to her own son, Thunder Son, going ahead and, being a regular child, wanting to be a regular child, and all that sort of thing, he had his own issues and all of that. But then he went ahead and he lost it. He got angry. He went ahead and messed up. He fucked up. And, he was pretty much seen as a monster. And, he had to get taken away because he was a liability, right? And that's the thing, right? In the sort of, two sides of the same coin, right? He looked like a normal boy, but he was dangerous. He became a danger to others. And, was treated differently because of a particular thing, not necessarily his appearance, but because he did not participate in all the activities. He was socially ostracized, right? That led him to lash out, and then, he had to go in order to not hurt anyone else. But, someone who, actually was kind and caring, and, he had this human form, he was attractive and all that sort of thing, but his base true nature was that of a snake man. He had that sort of, appearance. He had this sort of, outer surface layer, but on the inside, in his core, he was very a truly loving, kind man for the woman he loved, and generally speaking, for his tribe. And, just some food for thought right there about, how shallow or how deep an individual may be in people you come across, and assessing that and being like, what should I look for in a person? What is it that I should go ahead and value as most important? Not to say that physical appearance by any means has no value or doesn't go ahead and take precedence in some regards, especially when it comes to like keeping yourself healthy, right? But in the sense of like, all right, what matters at the end of the day in the long term, of having someone in your life? And, just there are many people who happen to have that sort of outside veneer, but, on the inside, they don't really have anything going on. They're hollow, And some people on the outside, they go ahead and they don't necessarily have, appealing appearances, but they're beautiful on the inside. In their core, that pure essence is there. And that's not to say it's one or the other. There's a spectrum, and people can have both or people can have neither, but it's just food for thought on that sort of sense of things. What should you value? And I guess one quote that comes to mind in regards to at least the vanity aspect of it, that everything that shines isn't always gold. And also, there happens to be a particular sort of thing that I remember, and I'm not remembering the particular practice at the moment, but it's a Japanese practice where particular pots, pottery, different sorts of bowls, glasses, all of that, right? When they get cracks and they go ahead and they get broken, there has been a practice in the past of taking those and actually filling in the cracks with gold, because they are seen as taking precedence in showing, the individuality, the uniqueness of a person and their story. And, like, hey, look, even though if someone's broken, even if someone is, hurt, or if someone has gone through shit, gone through trauma, gone through whatever hardships in their life, has built them to be a stronger person, to bring character, to go ahead and build that inner depth and all those sorts of things. And I'll actually go ahead and try to find in particular what it is that I'm speaking of. So that way I can go ahead and, you can, use this as a pointer, as a guide to delve more so into that concept. Ah, yes, here we go. So this is a particular image, and all of that. In Japan, broken objects are often repaired with gold. The flaw is seen as a unique piece of the object's history, which adds to its beauty. Consider this when you feel broken. That's a particular image that I happen to go ahead and have on hand quite a bit to relay that concept. But I'm trying to see what the name of that particular sort of practice is. I think that's probably enough to go on in the sense of finding for yourself. Truth be told, I don't know the name of the practice, but I'm sure it is out there. In any case, I just want to go ahead and share that story of Thunder Sun and looking into the heart for beauty, looking past the surface level at the depth in the character of a person to see their inner light shine, their inner beauty. You can have outer beauty, but the inner beauty is just as important, if not more important. So, with all that having been said, this is Twisted with Opener Sorcery, and stay frosty, Neguses. Peace.